Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you're in for a special treat. And what I mean by special treat, I mean as in the new school versus the old school. The time has finally come. You may have seen these two gentlemen debate intermittently on the Daily Show, on Wrestling Republic's Daily Show. But now this is what the table was made for. All right, we're just gonna leave everything on the table, everything wrestling related. Like I said, new school versus the old school. Two guys that are very passionate about their eras. All right, and yeah, it's either gonna be a house on fire or a complete nuclear crater in the middle of Earth. That's all I know. But yeah, you guys have been asking for this. We've been trying so hard to obviously get this down, but it's finally here, and it's the debate on Take It to the Table. Of course, I have none other than, of course, the two gentlemen I'm talking about is, of course, David Sheldon, and of course, the very controversial one, Ignacio. How you doing today, guys?
Oh, my eye on you too. All right.
You got your eye on us, yeah? Okay.
Unfortunately, I was looking through my t-shirt collection today to decide what t-shirt would be the most appropriate. I decided in the end for a Walter t-shirt. We'll start on common ground of something I believe we both appreciate mutually. But I tried to find my Jurassic Park t-shirt, but unfortunately, I couldn't find it. I looked really hard, but I couldn't find it. So
if it wasn't for copyright, I would love for you to actually play that in the background anytime you speak. The theme music of Jurassic Park, that'd be awesome. But
right off the bat, it's going to be 2-1 because Chaos, you're not going to be a very good moderator when it comes to.
No, I've always been neutral
because of all the shots you've been taking.
It's all right, Ignacio. If you just start out by calling us biased, if you just want to say automatically that you've lost before you start, then that's totally fine. I've got no problem with that.
Well, I just want to keep the viewers aware of what's going on because they've been paying attention to Wrestling Republic and all the shots that Chaos, shots that Chaos takes to me on, the other Daily Show and all the other shows. I do
believe on the most recent Daily that I listened to, Ignacio, I believe it was you that said that it was if me and Chaos stopped talking, that wrestling would be a better place. I believe it was that.
Well, that was a response to comments that Chaos had made to me a couple of shows prior. But I got to defend myself. I have to defend myself. I can't just lay down.
Someone's got to do it because no one's defending you. Anytime you say any comments, go on.
No one defends me. I'm all by myself. I'm all alone. All right. Everybody thinks I'm the crazy old man, but let's get on with the show and we'll see who's right, who's wrong, or who's crazy.
I mean, you are wrestling's version of that old grandpa that's on the porch. Get off my lawn, like you. That's definitely you, like this. But fair enough, it's all good. Like I said, this is an old school versus new school show, and we've it's been pretty eventful lately as well. Especially on Ignacio's favorite show, obviously AEW. And yeah, I just wanted to obviously let's go into your also not also your favorite show, but also your favorite tag team. What's going on is obviously we're talking about the Young Bucks, Ignacio, and obviously what do you think of their direction, and what was your thoughts knowing the fact that they are basically going to be Sting's final match in Revolution? Your thoughts on the whole situation, please, and the whole gimmick.
I told myself I was in Houston when Sting announced, or Sugar Land, Texas, when Sting announced his last match was going to be at Revolution, and I had told myself that wherever I'm at, whatever I'm doing, if I can get some time, take a quick flight out to Greensboro and watch Sting's last match, I'm gonna do it, no matter the ticket cost or whatever. I'll take it out of my WrestleMania budget or what have you. And then I find out that his last match is going to be against the Young Bucks. And nobody can convince me otherwise that Tony Khan sat down with Sting and said, okay, Sting, it's going to be your last match. I respect that. We want to give you a big send-off. And, you know, we're going to have it at Revolution approximately a year or so from your first match, I believe. And I have a hard time believing that Six said, okay, Tony, okay, but hold on. And he went and he pointed, I want those guys, and said he wanted the Young Bucks for his last match. I don't believe that for a second. I don't care what comes out on social media. I don't care what Sting says on social media. I don't care what Tony Khan says. That can't be true. Absolutely cannot be true that Sting handpicked the Young Bucks to have a match with. And it's just in the era that Sting came up in, the mid to late 80s, where kayfabe was somewhat protected and they were trying to do their best to still protect the business that the individuals that Sting was learning from at the time. He grew into the business with like Flair and Arn Anderson and Dusty Rhodes and Ole Anderson. And it's hard for me to believe that Sting coming up in that era where they tried to protect the business and make it still somewhat believable, that he would choose the Young Bucks, who have been more detrimental not only to tag team wrestling, but the wrestling business in general. Because, and I'm going into what I think about their characters, the heels that they're portraying, is the Young Bucks are not heels. They're guys pretending to be heels, right? Because they haven't immersed.
That's what wrestling is, Ignacio. Because wrestling isn't real.
Hold on. They haven't.
Everybody's pretending to be heels.
They haven't immersed themselves in the characters. I don't believe the Young Bucks have heels because they've been done so much to do one of these to the business. They make fun of the business. They're not serious about the wrestling business. They don't. Kenny Omega is another one. They make fun of the wrestling business. They don't immerse themselves in the characters. They don't believe they are the characters. They're just people playing characters to make fun of the business, right? And I think it's a big middle finger to WWE's or the way the wrestling has been portrayed in the WWE for a long time. But it's not a believable storyline. If you take my feelings out of how I feel about the Young Bucks, I mean, it's not believable how they became heels, because all of a sudden they want to play the EVP card and they're EVPs. Well, the best time to do that would have been the incident right after CM Punk, but they're not mature enough to start a dialogue with their coworkers who they've had conflicts with, no matter how big it was, to do business. And they're childish. I don't believe this story. I don't believe Sting handpicked them as opponents. I think he would know better. But, and I'll conclude with this, that guys like Sting and Luger and like Goldberg and Warrior, they weren't wrestling fans before they got into the wrestling business, and then they didn't become wrestling fans when they got into the wrestling business. It was a business. It was a way for them to make money. So I think those individuals that I mentioned are easily influenced as far as like, hey, this is a good idea and this would be good for you. And they just kind of throw up their hands and say, okay, we'll go with that. You know, because Sting never, and of course, I don't know, but he kind of struck me as a guy that wasn't very boisterous, maybe in the locker room, and just went with the flow. So you can't tell me for a second that this storyline is good. And it's kind of sad that this is the way this thing's going to go out with these two. Because, I mean, you can get, you know, no Jeff Jarrett, no Jay Lethal, no... Let's try to bring in Mick Foley.
Yeah, the best way to retire Sting is to put over the young talent of Jeff Jarrett. He really needs the rub. Really needs the rub.
I think better than
I love Jarrett, by the way.
He's been giving Darby Allin the rub for the past, I don't know, couple of years. So I don't think it's about trying to put over new talent. I think it's just giving Sting a good send off, and this is not the best way to do it.
Okay,
fair enough.
Let me respond to this. Do I think that the Young Bucks are the best choice to retire Sting? No, I don't. Do I think that then therefore means that the Young Bucks are a disgrace to the wrestling business and should never be seen again? No. And let's kind of unpack this. So We mentioned first of all about the best time for the Young Bucks to turn heel would have been after the Punk thing. I mean the wrestling. I keep saying wrestling, and this is the difference in mentalities. Wrestling is not real, right? Wrestling is a television show. I know that we're not in the same mentality we were in the 80s anymore because that's not what wrestling is anymore. I think for you, Ignacio, to sit there and say that yes, Sting could never have picked these guys because they go against that negates the fact that wrestling evolves and therefore so can Sting's opinions. And so far, that you have the same mentality of people who sit there 30 years later, like Jim Cornette, and say, well, it wasn't like my day in 1985, so it can't be like it was anymore. I like the EVP gimmick. I didn't at the start because I actually thought it was referencing things that didn't need referencing. It didn't need, we didn't need to bleed that that reality into fiction because it kind of made it. But I just find it odd that we talk about kind of talk about wrestlers not immersing themselves into their characters and it not feeling real enough. And then Matt and Nick Jackson play into the reputations that they've earned backstage. Ironically, probably the most 1980s, 1990s things that they could have done with it, turned it into a story, and therefore it's disgraceful. And I think you're just looking for reasons to complain. I don't think there is a single thing the Young Bucks could ever do that would ever win you over, and that's totally fine. This comes down, I think, to the crux of where me and you. This is where me and you, I think, disagree, Ignacio. Is that we like a lot of the same things. Most of the stuff that you like, I like as well. We do share that love. Where I get frustrated with you is when therefore anything that you don't like is therefore an embarrassment to the industry and anybody else who likes it is an idiot. And that is where I get frustrated because we can I like you. I like old Ric Flair. I like Dusty Rhodes. I like, all these guys. I love old Sting and Luger and all these people. I love all that stuff. But we're not in the 80s anymore. And we can complain about psychology with the Bucks, and that's a conversation that I think can be had, and I appreciate that. But I just think there's this attitude of if it's not what I want, then it's not what anybody should want, and that to me is the most similarity to Cornette that I can find. That idea of if it's not for me, then it's not. If it's not for me, then it's not for anybody. You can dislike the corporate Bucks. That's fine. I get that. I disagree with you, but that's fine. That's a difference of opinion. And again, I think there were probably better choices for Sting's final match, but for it to become, that they're, disgraces to the wrestling business that don't care. Come on now.
Fair enough. Okay. That's fair points from both sides. I must agree. I for one, I do agree that, I mean, the I'm just going to form my little 2 cents here. The Young Bucks gimmick, it did take a while for me to win me over at the beginning. I feel it didn't feel natural to them. It just felt kind of like out of place. But they made it into their own. I agree that the Young Bucks was a bit of a weird choice to choose. But while we're on the topic of choices, like who would have been your pick to face Sting as his retirement match, David?
Probably, I would say. I mean, Darby would have been the ideal, but I don't think they want to do that because I don't think Sting wants to wrestle outside of tag matches, which is totally fair enough. So I would have used it to put Starks over because they had the tag match. I would have had them just wrestle Starks and Bill and use that to get Starks over in having him retire Sting, having because they haven't lost a match, Sting and Darby. So that would have been huge for Ricky. Too, and feels like a star on the rise. Young Bucks, as much as I love the Young Bucks, in fairness, they don't feel like stars on the rise. They feel like new characters, but they don't feel like stars on the rise. Ricky Starks has huge potential, and it's like it's nowhere near the same as ending Taker's streak, for example. But being the one to retire Sting, and I would have them pin Sting in the middle of the ring. I think the Starks would have been your best bet for that.
That's fair enough. And
in a Starks and Bill versus Ricky and Darby. Have it be for the tag. I was going to have it be for the tag. No, don't have it be for the tag titles. But if they are going to have the tag titles, have them win it back. I don't know. This is a nostalgia run for Sting and Darby with the tag titles, so that's who I pick. But you could have picked a few people, and I don't think the Young Bucks are a bad shout, but they're not who I would have chosen.
No, I hear that. And funny enough, they kind of just disappeared since they lost the titles, haven't they? They even had a rematch or anything. It just went into obscurity, and that's one thing you really hate to see when it comes to them kind of those kind of tag teams, those kind of people just fall into obscurity, like just because obviously the Young Bucks or EVPs and whatnot. But that's fair enough. What about you, Ignacio? What would have been your better pick? And please don't say Ric Flair.
I don't know. I kind of wish that Sting would have
There we
found
go.
his way back.
There we go. That's
kinda
your
wish,
way.
I kind of wish Sting would have made his way back to WWE somehow, and maybe they could have had him a better send off. It's not a bad idea. Look, if you're gonna put, go ahead.
Go on. You can finish your point, Ignacio. Finish your point.
Like if you were gonna go with putting over new talent and all that stuff, I love Ricky Starks. He would have been a good one. I don't know, maybe Wardlow, because he definitely needs some reviving of some sort. I don't know. Darby Allin, I would have done something. If we're gonna go with nostalgia, like I said, I would have gotten the people that Sting has been around and involved in the past, like a Jarrett or Jay Lethal. I'm not saying have a match, but have him involved in the story somehow. No Mick Foley. Mick Foley, who was instrumental in Sting's career early on. Bring him in for something, not a match because of his health or what have you, but something. Kurt Angle's back and forth as far as how he feels, but I mean, can he do a match? I don't know, a tag match, just something. I think that would have meant something to Sting's career and would have sent him a better send off. But it's disappointing. It's disappointing. I don't think Young Bucks were ever stars on the rise in North America and the United States for sure. I think they're embarrassing, and the only other team that's been more detrimental to tag team wrestling other than them is the New Day.
Hey, there it is.
Oh my God, there we go.
That was. Can I just say that was my very first exposure to you, Ignacio. Was that before I joined the company? Was that New Day the worst thing to happen to tag team wrestling reel? That was the very first thing I ever saw from you. We were destined to do this forever. I just want to say though, on this issue, I think that's the difference. Mick Foley was mentioned, Kurt Angle was mentioned. I don't need to see any of those people. I can go on the network and I can go and watch Mick Foley and Sting's matches from the 90s. I can go and watch Kurt Angle and Sting in TNA. I can go and watch.
I wish more people would do it
when they were at their physical prime. I can go and watch. Foley and Sting try and kick. They've had some brilliant matches over the years. Those two. I could go back and watch any manner of Sting stuff from previously, but I don't know what that does for now. It's like Ric Flair having, umpteen retirement matches with Hogan and Foley and all these people. I can go back and watch much better versions of that from the 80s. What I want to see now is, okay, we're getting rid of Sting. Sting is retiring, not getting rid of Sting, but Sting is retiring. So if Sting's retiring, what do we do to benefit our product as well as give Sting the right send-off? There are two different things. It's not just the case of let's make Sting happy by putting him against all his old cronies from the 80s, because that's what Hogan did for 20 years. And on his way out, and it was painful. So I love Sting. I think Sting is a legend and an icon. But I think it's really interesting that when asked who was the person to retire him, your response was, I don't know. And then the best response to that was go back to WWE. Slight amount of bias showing there, Ignacio.
Well, look, it goes back to the premise that good storytelling and reality trumps in-ring work. The flip-flops and the floop-de-doos that these guys worship and praise nowadays. And I'll go into different genres in a minute, but you look at like WWE F in the 80s, and everybody says, oh yeah, Hogan, eat your vitamins and say your prayers and all that stuff. And that stuff was for the kids and the children and so forth. But you look at the stories he was involved in the 80s against Andre, against Macho Man and DiBiase, and the characters were quote unquote larger than life and made a little outlandish and all that stuff, but the stories in general themselves were believable and were as real as you can get. The story with Andre was jealous, undefeated for 15 years, but everybody's paying attention to Hogan. Everybody's giving Hogan credit for the rise of WWF in the 80s. He becomes jealous, aligns himself with Bobby Heenan, who gets in his head. His story with Macho Man and the Mega Powers. Who couldn't relate to somebody else trying to get in with their wife or their girlfriend? With the whole story with Miss Elizabeth. The story with DiBiase. DiBiase, a millionaire, billionaire, whatever he was trying to portray himself at the time. Cocky. Yeah, I can get whatever I want with money. I can buy the WWF title even. These were all believable, true-to-life stories, no matter how outlandish the characters were. Now, fast forward to today, it's more prevalent than ever because look what WWE's doing within the main event scene with the Bloodline and Cody. It's believable. You got two quote-unquote royal families feuding with each other. By the way, I wish Dustin was involved in this because that would make it a hell of a lot better. But it's what they have been going on in the main event scene. It's believable. Look at let's flash back and flash forward. But I mean, look at last year, Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn got over just doing his work on the mic, backstage segments with Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman. He lost every match he was in up until he faced Roman Reigns at last year's Elimination Chamber. LA Knight, mediocre rise. His in-ring work's not the best. I mean, it's not bad, but he got over on the microphone. He's believable. Characters and stories that are believable will trump whatever anybody does in the ring. And I love a great in-ring work, but now let's look at AEW. Ticket sales are struggling. Crowds are stagnating at live events. The only reason that they're close to selling out Greensboro for Revolution is because it is Sting's last match. If not, that they would cut that attendance in half, and that's what you would have. Because AEW's not doing good storytelling like they did in the 80s, like they did in the late 90s. You can put
I really missed. Yeah, I love the amazing believability of Doink the Clown. Fully believed he was a real character. Fully believed Mantar was a real character. Fully believed that King Mabel was a real character.
That was, look, I'll say that was a downtime in all of the business, the early 90s, 91 to 94, 95. But what I'm saying is that AEW can put in all the dream matches they want. Eventually you run out of dream matches. And if there's no story to them, it's not going to sell tickets. Nobody's going to care. And that's prevalent with their ratings and their ticket sales at live events today and Dynamites and what have you.
But that's fair. You know what? I understand. I think that's fair enough. And I don't think that you're wrong in saying that. Where I do think you're wrong is in the AEW don't tell good stories thing, because I think that is willfully wrong. I think you look at, I think we cherry pick this idea of, so it's entirely believable that, we'll go back to the 80s, this 80s thing. Just because stories are not being told like they were 43 years ago doesn't mean that they're no longer believable. If you look at, let's look at AEW right now. We've got Swerve, Joe, Hangman. That's your main event for maybe it might not be a main event. That might be Sting's last match, but that's your world title match for Revolution, right? 3 characters with defined motivations who will go out and have a great match, all of whom are viable contenders for the world title. No issue there. Well, the women's title feud is silly. It is silly. It's Toni Storm, and I understand that. I love Toni, but I get why people don't. But that is a story of 2 former friends, one of whom's lost her mind, and the other one is trying to kind of, whoop her ass, basically. The tag title match is about entitled assholes who are trying to target the old guard, which is the Young Bucks are hypocrites, and lay their hands on Sting's children, and Sting is now going to come back and whoop their ass. They're not just plucking matches out of their asshole. You know, there are matches.
They used to.
They're all matches with build. They used to, and they still do on TV. I'm
Yeah.
not going to sit here and pretend that they don't, because they do. But that is an issue that I understand. It's not something that bothers me personally. I can take good wrestling every week, but I understand why that is frustrating. But I think that in going back to the 80s constantly, everything that Ignacio says is straight back to the 80s, always back to the 80s. And then how does that 80s structure relate 43 years later with Roman and Cody is a brilliant story. It's a great story. Love that story.
You almost fucked it up, but yeah, it is.
They almost did. They almost did. But you know, they've got a great story. We've got a heel Rock again. That's all marvelous. Where my thing is both can exist. There are many ways to tell a story. It doesn't have to be your cup of tea, the way that story is told. But this idea that there is only one way you can tell a story and any other way is wrong and should not be in wrestling, I think is just completely wrong.
You also got to think, like, could you actually see the structure and certain storylines that we saw, or maybe not saw, maybe just saw like snippets of them in on the network and whatnot, all those kind of storylines that were created in the 80s and the 90s, maybe not so much the 90s, they definitely wouldn't fly now, but especially like the 80s, could you actually see them be conveyed or be translated easily through? I feel like they some of them are quite hard to watch storyline wise if you try to watch them today. Sure, the matches itself, like if you watch the matches, they may have been great, but in terms of the story and whatnot, most of them were quite what's the word I'm looking for? Prehistoric, if that's the right, I don't know. Do you think that certain things could actually translate back then? Is that why Ignacio is holding on to that era in such high regard? Do you actually feel like all that stuff will carry over here?
Well, I think there's certainly ways that it can translate, because I think Cody is the thing. Is if we look at Cody, let's take Cody Rhodes, right? Cody Rhodes is wonderful, but Cody Rhodes is an evolution of the bait. He is a throwback in a sense, but he is an evolution of, like, if you look at the biggest stars in WWE, right, over the years, each one of them has evolved in a different way to fit the era that they come from. So Hogan, the way that Hogan would not have worked in the late 90s when Austin was over. That's why Hogan made a change, and that's why Hogan turned heel and changed his character. So that he then became relevant in that new thing. The era in which Austin was Cena would not have worked in that era. You go through phases in wrestling of different forms of top stars with, relating to, the era that they come from. So in the modern era, the reason why people like Orange Cassidy has got so over, and the reason why characters like that have got over as well as they have, you may not like them, Ignacio, but they're over, and people like them and will pay to watch them and will buy their merchandise. They are like, the wrestling sensibility changes with each decade. If it didn't, we'd still be watching Toots Mondt from the 1920s. Wrestling doesn't stay the same. Every 10 years or so, and less than that even, wrestling changes. Cody is a rare kind of exception to this, because Cody is kind of a throwback to, he's a mixture of the modern era main event star in the ring and an older era talent in terms of his, commitment to being the world's nicest man. And he does feel very throwback, and it is working. And I think Cody is an extraordinary talent. I am not saying that these characters can't work, these storylines can't translate, because they can. My argument is it shouldn't be the only way that it's done.
I understand that. No, I get that. Hold up. Let's just resume there. Sorry about that. Okay. Yes, I think it was Ignacio. What's your rebuttal on that, Ignacio, if you remember?
Well, it's just, it goes with the premise that I've conformed to the fact that in order for what I like to exist, other stuff has to exist, but it shouldn't exist. So it's just like, you go back to, the same old stories from the 80s, the 70s, the 90s, or whatever, but I'm not saying that they should be presented exactly the same. But I mean, I'm saying it just works. Like, another one is like Jake Roberts and Rick Rude. Again, who couldn't relate or somewhat relate or know somebody who can relate that, somebody hitting on somebody else's wife or girlfriend. And then Root coming out with the tights with the tights with Jake's wife printed on them, airbrushed on them, whatever. Yeah. It's just simple stuff like that. That simple storytelling that can ignite a fire on somebody. And I'm not saying it has to be told the same way. I'm just saying things like that trump like acrobatic BS that like Will Ospreay and Ricochet do or have done or did 7 years ago with that match, which I think was, I wouldn't be caught dead watching that match. I'd rather watch, Tony Atlas get stomped in the head by, whoever he paid to do it for or whatever. I'd rather, it's just silly. It's embarrassing. It's acrobatics. It's not wrestling. It's not good storytelling. It's stuff like that upsets me.
So what is wrestling then, Ignacio?
Wrestling
is wrestling?
It's good storytelling. If you want me to give you a modern example, we both agree on it. Like what's going on with the Bloodline and Cody.
But I'm just kind of taking you. What I mean by that is if acrobatics is not wrestling, if that's not wrestling, then how far back do we go with this? Because wrestling was conceived to look like a shoot, and it would be headlocks and arm drags, and it would be submission wrestling basically. So when you go back to like I said, the Toots Mondt era of the wrestling's beginnings, from there, before that was the strongman era. So when you get into the point where people are running the ropes and hitting shoulder tackles, that's an evolution. That's something that that doesn't look real. Throwing a wrestler back and forth off the ropes over and over, that's not real. So if that's not real, so I'm sure people at the time said, well, that's not reality. Then you go into moves off the top rope. Then you go in, it's at a certain point, at what point does evolution become a bad word? At what point does a changing of style become, because we get eras upon eras upon eras of this. In 40 years' time, there will be wrestlers. Hopefully wrestling will last forever. In 20, 30, 40 years' time, there'll be old men like me sat there at the age of 50, 60, sat there saying, "Oh, it wasn't like it was back in my day. Look at this nonsense that they're doing. It's the Young Bucks. That's who it used to be like." I'm not saying that's what it'll be, but if you look through the history of wrestling, just from an in-ring perspective, it changes, it evolves. You get different genres, different styles. For the stuff that you like, that's totally, I get it completely, because I love that stuff as well. I love that style. It's just, my argument is, at what point does that become, like I said, does progress become a dirty word?
I'll call your bet. Oh, go ahead, Chaos.
No, I was going to say, and there's also don't rule out the fact there may be another thing where, because the thing with us humans, we like to run back trends. You never know. Like what was good back in the 80s and 90s might be the in thing in 10, 20 years time.
Well,
so,
my favorite match this year so far is my favorite match this year so far is Ilya Dragunov and Trick Williams from NXT. And the reason for that is because every move matters. And you can see the story of the physical storytelling of every single move, every kick, every chop. You can see the processes. You can see it all being worked out. And it tells a match-by-match story. I've just watched Michael Oku and Will Ospreay from Rev Pro. And while I loved the match, my complaint was it starts to take the mick. Because you are being dropped on your head for half an hour. And just keep kicking out, and it goes beyond the point of absurdity. Wrestling is a nuanced business where, and sometimes we are hypocrites. I'm a hypocrite sometimes. I can sit and watch matches go an hour long sometimes and be fine with that, and sometimes not be, because wrestling is art. And as an art, any form of art will have its hypocrisies, because we all take to things differently. But am I saying that Michael Oku and Will Ospreay, even if I didn't personally get on with it by the end, should not exist and is an embarrassment? No, I think it's just a misstep. And that's why and here's why it's a misstep. Here's my opinion. If you disagree, that's wonderful. I just get this. If you disagree, you're wrong. That's where I start to get frustrated.
Well, I'll call your bet and I'll up it a little bit. And because people tell me, or they make the argument, well, what about Shawn Michaels? And what about, the Rockers? And what about Brian Pillman? And what about Jushin Liger and all these, Rey Mysterio? They found a way to incorporate their moveset in a match in a way that it would be believable, especially when they're facing larger opponents like Shawn Michaels and Mick Foley or Undertaker or Rey Mysterio against the Big Show. But they didn't purposely try to go out there and put on an acrobatic show with egregious cooperation. It's obvious that they're trying to help each other. And yes, that happens in every match, and we know, or whatever, but the way these individuals do it, and I use Ospreay and Ricochet, but you can use almost anybody on TV, Top Flight and AEW, and the Lucha Brothers and all this stuff, because that's the Lucha style. It's just so egregious that they're cooperating. And I'll take it into another genre or style of wrestling. When people saw Mick Foley and Terry Funk in the 90s in Japan or whatever, whether it was through tape trading or they saw it in a preview or whatever, that started a whole genre and generation of, oh, I can do that. All I got to do is hit, somebody else with a shovel, or, ring myself through barbed wire and I can be a wrestler. Foley and Funk were so much more than that, but people saw that and say, oh, if I can do that, I can be a wrestler. And that started, the Moxley stuff. Because Moxley has gone on TV and people used to criticize him calling spots. Well, he started doing it on purpose. He did this to the wrestling fans and force feeds it down my throat, keeps on reminding me every week, hey, this is fake. This is phony, and I'm just doing it because I want to show the IWC
and the Hulk up didn't.
What's that?
When I said, and the Hulk up didn't. When Hogan would take it, when Hogan would
to anything.
Well, what you're saying is that wrestlers are going out there and giving middle fingers to the fans and saying, I don't care if you believe this. Warrior splashing Hogan off the top rope for Warrior to just stand. So for Hogan to just stand up. That's not an example of going out and going, I don't care if you think this is real. This is, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I love the Hulk up, and I love all that shtick. But like, for it to be this, if it doesn't look real, then it's not my thing. Then we can go back to the 80s, just cherry picking the bits of the 80s that you want to remember and ignoring the rest.
No, because what Hogan and Warrior, or whatever example you want to use, or Hogan, the Hulk up, he was catering to the fans, and they're
not.
But
Moxley isn't.
Moxley's giving the middle finger to the fans and to the online IWC, which I don't really care about or whatever. But it's just, I don't need to be reminded this is phony. Like, I don't need you to yell at me in my face and tell me, because that's what it is. Say, hey, this is fake. This is phony. I don't care if you like it or not.
How? What specific example does Moxley do to put a middle finger to the fans? Because the fans love him. They sing his song every time, and they cheer him like crazy every time he comes out.
So AEW fans like him. It's like
right. So what you're saying is the fans in the building like him, but that means nothing. That means absolutely nothing. So all the fans that loved Hogan, ignore all the people that hated Hogan. The fans in the crowd cheered him. So what? Those fans were wrong?
Well, I mean, Hogan was selling out arenas all over the world. Moxley, wrestles in front of an average of 2,500 a week now.
What you're essentially saying is, Ignacio, I don't like Moxley, and I think Moxley is bad for the business. Therefore, anyone that cheers him is wrong. That's what you're saying.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. But that's the thing. If you'd admit that, if you'd just admit that it's just, I'm glad you have, because it's just this. I get frustrated at this idea that, you know, wrestling fans, unless they conform to what I personally like, I don't like deathmatch wrestling. I've made that very clear. I don't like the smashing people overhead with and bleed until they're sick mentality of wrestling personally. But I'm not going to go and call anybody that likes that wrong. They're just not what I want to watch in my wrestling. If I don't want to watch a match, I won't watch it. I turned off. What was the match I turned off? It was I did end up watching it in its entirety, and I did think it was great. But Moxley Hangman, the Texas Death Match, I turned that off the first time I watched it because it was too grisly for me to sit through. I then went back and watched it again a few months later, and I was okay. But I'm not going to say that anybody that could stick to the end of it was completely wrong. It's just that we share different ideas of what we want to see in wrestling, and that's totally fine. If you want to see that way of wrestling being, then I've got no problem with that because I love it as well. But just it's this: if it's not what I want to see, then you know it's an embarrassing mud show, and nobody else can see wrestling. Nobody else knows wrestling like I know wrestling.
Well, look, and going back to what I was saying earlier about Moxley and calling spots and all that stuff on purpose, because he did it. He used to do it egregiously. That's one of the examples I was giving as far as like him giving the middle finger to the fans and so forth. People used to accuse John Cena of doing the same thing, that it was obvious when John Cena used to call spots. I never really noticed it. And
have you seen the clip from him? So have you seen the clip from him in the tag team match where he's going, you can move, not yet, move, stay. It's great.
But you can argue the fact that John Cena tried to improve when Moxley's not trying to improve. He's just taking the information. Is like, okay, you guys are bitching because you know you can hear me call spots. Well, I'm going to do it even louder and more obvious to be more obnoxious because he's unprofessional. I don't.
I've never noticed it. I've never noticed Moxley been that bad at calling spots either. But you know, it's if that's what you want to, if that's what you think, Ignacio, I'm not going to change your mind on that. So
yeah, I thought that Moxley was way more subtle than Cena. I mean,
oh god,
yeah, he's way more subtle. Yeah, Cena does not give a fuck. Like if you watch back his match with Theory, Jesus Christ, he did not care.
And the thing is, I don't care about that because I know that wrestling isn't real. So it's like, you know, think Pillman's got a gun, for example. You know, I'm not, you know, I'm happy to acknowledge the fact that Brian Pillman does not actually want to shoot Stone Cold Steve Austin. You know, but what I will say, actually, that might be a bad example because the reason Pillman's got a gun was so successful was because of the shock factor of everything.
Yeah.
But so that was probably a bad example to use. But it's like, you know, I don't really want to believe the Undertaker is trying to actually kill the big boss man by hanging him from the Hell in a Cell. There is an element of, you know, sort of dramatic license that has to come in at a certain point as an adult, not as a child, but as an adult. When you're watching a product to know that it's a piece of entertainment. And as part of that piece of entertainment, we can criticize wrestlers for calling spots too loud. The Bellas used to be really bad at calling spots too loud back in the day. Cena's been terrible at it. Moxley's not great. But, you know, that's just sort of how, you know, that's just part of the business. You can call that out and you can try and improve it. And you know, if Ignacio, I've never noticed it, but if we go off Ignacio's point of Moxley doing it louder just to kind of stick it to people, then yeah, that is unprofessional. I don't think Moxley's Mr. Professionalism. I think I love Moxley, but I don't think he's Mr. Professional at all. But in the ring, and I appreciate that, but I just think that, again, some examples are being highlighted because of personal distaste rather than, and other examples are being willfully sort of glossed over.
Fair dues. Boy, that was quite. That was a very nice little rebuttal between you two. I did enjoy that. Let's move on to from AEW for a minute. To really talk about. Oh, actually, no. Here's a random question, especially for you, Ignacio. Is there a match that you going into it you absolutely thought it was gonna suck ass? but you actually enjoyed it way more. Like, and it's almost like a guilty pleasure type of match. Is there one that comes into mind?
Yeah, I mean, the Bucks. It involves the Bucks.
What?
I got two right off the top of my head. I just thought of another one. I mean, I liked the match the Bucks had with Hangman and Kenny Omega. I liked I can't remember the pay-per-view. I like one of their matches with FTR.
Yeah.
I liked Will Ospreay and Chris Jericho in Wembley. I thought that was great because Ospreay was forced to tone down his moveset because Jericho can't keep up with him. And I thought that was a good thing. So
yeah, I thought the match with Ospreay was with Jericho was fantastic as well. I think the thing with Ospreay, if we just go on him quickly, is I do think that Ospreay's match with Ricochet in 2015, although because I've never actually seen that match, I'll be honest, I haven't seen that one yet. But I know of it, and you've seen the clips, and we know it's infamous reputation. I feel like that turned a lot of people who don't like that style off Ospreay for many years and accused him of never telling stories in the ring. And he does. He does tell great stories in the ring, not just in the Jericho match, but in other matches. He's not just a big move machine. I mean, Ospreay was my wrestler of the year last year. I did criticize a few of his matches for going a bit overboard because there are so many hidden blades you can hit somebody with before it starts to take the mick. Mm-hmm. And that's my one complaint with Ospreay is that he has 5-star matches and then that typically go about 4 minutes too long. But like, I do think that match with Ricochet has clouded a lot of people's opinions on him. And I do think that the Jericho match will actually have done him a lot of favors in that sense, particularly coming into AEW. Although, like, the match with Takeshita is going to be a big move special for probably half an hour. That's the kind of match that he'll have. But Ospreay is not limited to one style of match. He can wrestle several, depending on. It's like Walter, Gunther, same os. They can wrestle. They can wrestle different matches with different people, depending on the match with Sheamus won't be the same as the match with Ray, or won't be the same as the match with they're all different. But Ospreay does have a style, and if you don't like Ospreay's style, I get that. It works for me, but it might not work for others. But I do think the Jericho match would have done him a lot of favors in that regard because it did show a different side to Ospreay, to a mainstream fan that doesn't watch every New Japan match he ever has.
So basically, Ignacio does not mind the Young Bucks or Will Ospreay as long as the flippy doodahs have been kept to a minimum. It has to be a grounded match, basically, because the matches you mentioned were quite grounded.
Yeah, and I'm not. Sorry, go on, Ignacio.
If you go with the first example, I give the Bucks with Hangman and Kenny Omega, that also had a good story behind it back when AEW was telling good stories.
They still do.
FTR and the Young Bucks, it was a match that everybody wanted to see. I wasn't excited to see it because I didn't care much for the Young Bucks. I think it was their first match. It was I believe it was the Double or Nothing. I don't know. But I mean, again, pretty good when you put them with a tag team or opponents that are grounded and want to tell good stories. When you leave them on their own, you get what you get right now with this storyline with Sting. Well, let me have anything to do creatively with their storylines or anybody else's storylines for that matter.
Well, for balance, because I don't agree with that, but for balance, let me talk about a match that the Young Bucks had that I didn't like. For the same reason that Ignacio has brought up, I didn't like they had a 6-man tag, and it was Omega and the Bucks versus United Empire, which was Fletcher, Davis, and Ospreay. Went about 20 minutes, main event of Dynamite, and I hated it because it was 20 to 25 minutes of people throwing like incredible athletic skill, but it was 25 minutes of nobody selling anything. And it reached the point where I was like, oh, sorry. It reached the point where I was like, oh, for God's sake. It was the Bucks were just taking stupid moves and getting straight back up. That annoys me. That does annoy me from an internal logic perspective. It does. But I I don't think they do it nearly as much as people accuse them of doing it. I do think typically they're mostly good, but there are matches like that where it goes overboard and you do get flippy do. No, I don't care how many flips you do as long as there's some element of selling to it. I don't care if spots are coordinated. That it's wrestling, but I want to believe it hurts.
Yeah.
And when it's like when people get like say there was one match that Orange Cassidy hit. I think it was Cassidy and Penta, and they did like 4 Canadian destroyers, 1, 2, 3, 4 backbuster ramps. I was just like, nah, I wouldn't have. I didn't hate it, but I was just like, nah, I just wouldn't have, because it that devalues the move, and I get that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Again, wrestling fans are hypocrites, myself included. And there's things that you could literally tear my match ratings apart for things that I love and things that I don't like, and being very similar. It's personal taste at the end of the day,
which we'll get into in a second. But no, one thing I did hate. I think you're right. The fans are very fickle and hypocritical, because like obviously it looked good on TV seeing it after 5 seconds, and then when eventually you just realize like wait, okay, that was kind of stupid. You know what I mean? Like sure, it looks good for TV for that good 5 seconds. But yeah, going back onto obviously when you say about personal tastes and whatnot, there was one match that happened recently, was kind of griped my gears. I think I was the only one that was griped my gears, and I'm pretty sure you know what we're talking about. It's what happened on the last episode of Dynamite, which I'm sure we're gonna get. I know you want to get your 2 cents in, Ignacio, between Deonna Purrazzo and Madison Rayne. Through all its like, I think quite arguably it's one of the worst, if not the worst, match in AEW women's history. And I think
it's the worst. I genuinely think from an in-ring perspective, it's the worst match AEW have ever put on.
Probably,
I've seen
yeah.
like stuff like the Texas Chainsaw match annoyed me more. There's been matches that have had stupid story nonsense or injuries. Like I know this one did as well, but where like Sammy Guevara fell on his head. That's up there as well. Sammy Guevara and Matt Hardy, but not a single move. Not a single move came off. It was It's the lowest rating. It's the lowest rating I think it might be the lowest rating in the history of WR's rating system, because I gave it 1 star, which implies. Which I don't, because Pitch Black didn't get lower than that. Texas Chainsaw certainly did, and I remember rating that. If it's not the worst, it's up there. Since Kobe's new system was introduced, I think it is up there.
Probably, yeah, because I remember I know one, I think it was the promo. I think it was Nia Jax's promo would have got a 0.5 star. But maybe in terms of a match, that is probably the lowest one when you think about it. I'm pretty sure Nia Jax's promo got 0.5. But yeah, like I just want to get like, what made you think it was worth even the full? Like, is that the minimum? Can you give it a 0.5?
Bear in mind our rating system is in 5 parts.
Yeah.
So, in order for me to give it 1 star, something had to get 0.
Right.
Because everything is based in a star. So yeah, pretty bad. Pretty poor.
Fair enough. What about you, Ignacio? What was your thoughts going through? Because you haven't got your thoughts on that match.
Well, I mean, it's just reinforces not only my theory, but a lot of names in wrestling who are in media or podcasting or whatever. It's a indictment on AEW system, and I've heard online several people that like AEW doesn't have like production meetings. They don't go over matches. They don't listen to veterans, blah, blah, blah. And not just from one source, from several sources. I don't know if it's true or not, but you have like a lot of reliable sources that say that, hey, the younger guys, they don't ask the veterans for help or advice or whatever. Hangman said it in that interview with what's his name, that Van Vliet character, who I don't really care much for to begin with. Arn Anderson has said it. Cody Blanchard has said it. And it's just like these people
Punk said it.
Don't go over matches before. Punk said it, but I mean, it's like these people don't go over matches before they go out there. They don't talk. Madison Rayne, when's the last time she was in the ring? And I love Deonna Purrazzo. I really do. But again, I hate to say it, and I sound like a broken record, and I know people say like, well, he's just shitting on AEW, but what if that happened in WWE? No, absolutely not. That wouldn't have happened because the proper measures would have been taking place. Maybe
So,
Deanna
sorry,
Pratt, maybe she's, hey, you need some.
Sorry, what are we arguing here? Are we talking about the fact that a match that bad wouldn't have been put on TV, or the spot of her being dropped on her head wouldn't have happened on WWE? Because I think there are two.
Both.
Well, I think look, the spot of her dropping herself directly on her head, that is a botch, and that is a botch of a miscommunication of a spot.
Yeah,
I think more in line with like Triple H, Marty Garvin, where Garvin thinks he's going for does the pedigree, thinks he's going for a double underhook and drops crack right on top of his head.
I think that's what it was.
You know, I certainly, if I was AEW, would not have done it as the move of the night. Whoever decided on that should be sacked. And I'll be honest with you, I agree to the extent that
Something else that wouldn't have.
Sorry?
Something else that wouldn't have happened in WWE.
Yes, I agree with
they
that.
Wouldn't have aired that.
Take it back to the to Vinci's concussion on Raw at the start of the year. Yeah. Match immediately stopped. When she gets dropped on her head, that match should have stopped. To be honest, it should have just, and they kind of did because they went straight to the finish. They just went straight to the ankle lock, tap out, and you're done. But AEW do have an issue with injuries, and that is something that needs, not in terms of people getting injured, but in terms of risky spots in the ring that, you know, it wasn't really a risky spot. It's just like a flapjack-like thing, and she just tucked her head for some reason. But it's the kind of thing where, like, protocols need to be reviewed, and that things. WWE have got better at that. AEW need to do the same. I think back to Jon Moxley and Rey Fenix as another example of that. Injuries are serious things, particularly on people's heads, and that needs to be looked at. From the perspective of a match this bad wouldn't have got into the ring. I've watched NXT. You have a few that are, but that is developmental. If this match was on Rampage, I don't think it would have been as much of an issue because that is kind of their seashore. But this was on their main show, and it was embarrassingly bad. It was was embarrassing. And in fairness to you, Ignacio, I agree with you in the extent that I don't think something this bad would have made its way to Raw. Just this completely inept in every way. And they're not bad wrestlers, so I think it was just an off night where nothing came together. But it felt like a match where nothing had been planned, nothing had been spoken about, and nobody knew where they were, what they were doing. So on that, I think I agree with you. I certainly don't think this match should have been put on television.
No, I agree 100%. It did feel like it looked like Madison Rayne didn't really want to be there, and it was and people, I remember people were saying, "Oh, Deonna Purrazzo's just rusty." I'm like, she's not. She hasn't been. It's not like she's been out the ring for years. I mean,
no. Like, well, I'll say this: I've been quite vocal that I think Deonna Purrazzo. If I had not seen her work outside of AEW, I would be very disappointed by what I've seen in AEW since she's joined, because she's had a lot of underwhelming, short, boring matches are not helping her. Because the story with Storm is good, and I love the Tony Storm character because it's camp, and I love camp. I very much kind of it's a weird one, really. I just think
WWE has more avenues in place to where if they're gonna bring somebody like her in, her being Deonna Purrazzo or somebody of her level or her experience or whatever, they'd be like, hey, we know you were over there, but when you come here, it's a little bit different, and we're going to send you to NXT for a little bit. Doesn't mean you'll never make it on Raw or SmackDown or whatever, but I think you need to learn a little bit more of our system, or you need a little bit more remedial training or whatever you want to call it before we put you on one of the major shows. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially for people like he just went back to NXT, the British guy,
British Holland.
Yeah, because he's had a couple of incidents where he's hurt some people, and whether his fault or not, they need to address it somehow. So it's like, bro, you need to go back to NXT because we really don't know if it's your technique or what have you, or you need some learning to do but we're going to send you back there because you need some training because you've hurt some people.
Yep.
I'm just saying WWE has more avenues in place to prevent the things that we saw on Dynamite.
Yes, they do. I also think WWE is it's a global infrastructure that has built over 40, 50 years. So these are I think pains that AEW need to address, and I'm certainly not saying that they don't, because they do need addressing. But I do think WWE will always have those bigger infrastructures on account of them having all this network behind them, which AEW don't have, because they're still a relatively an upstart company compared to others in the market.
Yeah, no, you both made valid points regarding the Ana Peraza match. I do feel that it was just they both had a bad set. That's what it was. And but right now they're definitely you know, the AEW haters, they are just chomping at this thing.
And that's the frustration. That's the frustration, and that's why I'm so gutted that it made its way to TV, because it's stuff like this. It takes a lot of people in the IWC, particularly, are only waiting for one bad match to pounce on it.
Exactly.
They're only waiting for one bad thing, one bad spot. They like the episode of Dynamite I thought was broadly fine. But I thought the opener was great. The FTR versus Claudio Moxley match I thought was really good. 20-minute time limit draw. But no one will talk about that. No one will talk about Wardlow's promo, because all people are talking about is Madison Rayne getting dropped on her head. And it's unfortunate, but you put something that bad on your television show, you know, you can have 7 seasons of wonderful Game of Thrones, but it only takes one bad one. You know, and that's all anyone's going to talk about. No, that's more related to the bloodline. I'm joking. That's a different podcast another day. The bloodline thing. Thank God it's getting good again.
100%.
But yeah, it was an embarrassing match that shouldn't have made its way on television. But I do think that there is it's frustrating that is what people will take. It's a bit like the Pro Wrestling Noah show they had at the start of the year, which had some cracking matches on it, but no one talks about that because all they talk about are Kota Ibushi's shattered ankles. You know, a match that I actually don't think is as nearly as bad as everyone says it is, but even still, it only takes one bad thing to tank a show. Remember Extreme Rules with the Finn Balor Roman Reigns when he comes tumbling off the rope, assisted by God. A great match and quite a good show, just tanked.
Yes.
The Backlash 2021 being tanked by zombies. You know, it's that's one of the best shows WWE did in the pandemic, and nobody talks about Roman Cesaro. Nobody talks about Lashley, Strowman, and McIntyre, because all people talk about are those fucking zombies.
It's true. All it takes is one. Was it Revolution 2021? Anybody? Where was that? Was the exploding barbed wire match, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It was 2020, 2021.
Great match, and then
July 4th, everybody. But the other Peraza, in my opinion, is running out of she's running out of time in terms of quality of matches. I agree. It's not great.
I'm waiting for Revolution because I want to see what happens in the Tony match. If she can pull off a really great match with Tony, I will change my tune completely, because I know Peraza is really good.
Exactly.
If I didn't think she was really good, I'd be more likely to complain. But I'm more frustrated because I've seen what she can do, and she's showing it on the mic. She's done some good promos with Tony, but she's not. I'm not seeing it in the ring, and I need to see it in the ring.
I understand. No, I totally get that. All right. Let's see. It was obviously we are in Mania season, obviously, or the road to WrestleMania, so to speak. Elimination, as of this recording, Elimination Chamber is tomorrow. What's your hype levels regarding this? Do you feel like it's just a filler show, or do you feel like it's, are you looking forward to the pay-per-view? Let's go with Ignacio.
Yeah, I mean, it's a filler show between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, but I mean, we got some good stories being told, and we got some good build-up. You know, the men's Elimination Chamber is pretty stacked. I still think there's going to be some some shenanigans going on there, and I don't know if it was David. But somebody predicted that Sami Zayn was going to slip his way into the match, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think Sami deserves a big match at WrestleMania, and obviously he's going to be there. We just don't know what he's going to be doing yet, so that's interesting to see if he makes his way onto the show. I like Nia and Rhea Ripley, and that's the match I'm actually going to be talking about later on the Daily Show. So everybody needs to tune into the Daily Show. I'm interested to see that's going. They've done a good job building up Nia Jax, and I think she's done pretty good as far as her return back to WWE. She's cut some pretty good promos. She's had some good matches. She squashed some people that we didn't expect her to. And I think it's a good build for a good match, and a good match for Rhea in her home country. Her home country, right? Or is she from New Zealand?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's an exciting show for what it is. A lot of people think that a lot of stuff is predictable. Well, I mean, if you look in the history leading up to WrestleMania, there's some stuff that is, for the most part, it is kind of predictable, but it's just how they get there.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
That's the interesting part of it, is how are we going to get there? And I think this Elimination Chamber, this pay-per-view is going to be pretty good for what it is, a build-up to WrestleMania. I think it's a good, and they're in Perth, right? Australia, a new place, a new environment, a new stadium, new fans that we're going to see on TV. And man, those fans are going to be 100% pumped to see a WWE show live on pay-per-view, are they not?
Oh yeah.
What was Super Showdown, the last Australian show?
That was the last one. Yeah. But that was in Sydney, I believe.
Yeah,
that was,
and that was a glorified house show. So
yes, 100%.
House show.
That was a big show in the stadium where I think wasn't Triple H versus Randy Orton or Triple H versus Cena.
I think Triple H Cena was the first Saudi show.
Really? Okay.
Oh, was it? I can't remember. It wasn't very good. Whatever.
It was not. I remember Cena was definitely on the mic, just talking. Anybody after the match. What was the first one? Okay, no, Undertaker versus Goldberg. That was 2019.
No, that was Saudi. If it's shit, it's probably Saudi. If it's really shit, it's probably Saudi.
Oh, and then you got Cody and Seth on the Grayson Waller effect, and what's going to happen there. That's what I'm saying, is that WrestleMania and the build up to WrestleMania is more interesting this year than it ever has been in a long time, quite a while. The main event stuff and the upper mid card stuff.
But so, I slightly disagree. I agree with on everything you said. I'm excited for this show on the back of the fact that I think we're going to get 4 good matches. I mean, Bate and Dunn versus Judgment Day will be really good. Men's Chamber should be really good. Women's Chamber should be really good. And Nia and Rhea will have the hometown buzz behind it. I think the show is too predictable. Just a little bit. And the only reason is, like, last year's was predictable as well. But you could sell the show on Sami and Roman.
Hell yeah!
With they did the really good bit of commentary. It's like, what if that was that little bit of a win. I don't believe there's a cat in hell's chance that anybody other than Becky Lynch, Drew McIntyre, Judgment Day, and Rhea Ripley are winning those 4 matches at Elimination Chamber. I'm interested to see what's on the Grayson Waller effect. I'm really. Shall I say it here? Yeah, I'll say it here because we're taking him. I'm really not won over by Grayson Waller on the main roster, and it's a shame because I was his biggest fan in NXT.
Yeah,
I was, when he got called up to the main roster, I was so excited. I remember being so much like, this is your guy, because he had such an interesting layered personality in NXT, and he's come up to the main roster and he's become, SmackDown Miz, which is fine. He's doing his job well. He's in big stories, and that's great for him. I'm glad he's got the exposure. But I think there's he's so much better than this. But nevertheless, that's a different kind of argument for another day. I just think there needed to be, I think, one match on this card that you didn't know what way it was going to go. One.
Yeah, of course.
That had, like, because bearing in mind, and this is where I get to talk about predictability, take the women's chamber, right? The women's chamber has a lot of people in that match who realistically could have gone on to face Rhea Ripley. Liv Morgan's just come back, could have been putting the rocket on Tiffany Stratton, who's great. Naomi's just come back. Raquel's was never going to win it, but she's just come back. Who's the other one? Oh, and Becky, obviously. Unfortunately, what they then did was they then did the press conference, and Becky Lynch came out and stared down Rhea Ripley, and then spent every single week since saying, "I'm going to face Rhea Ripley." So we know that Becky Lynch is going to face Rhea Ripley at Mania. So all this good work that could have been done in building Liv Morgan, because poor Liv Morgan, could have been done to make Liv Morgan more interesting or make any of those people more interesting going into this match, they failed to capitalize on because they just want to get to Becky and Rhea. Chamber to me this year, more than any year in a long time, feels like a formality show to get where we need to be, which is 100%. Drew versus Seth. I think Sami injecting himself into the men's chamber is the most interesting thing that could happen, because if Sami gets in, even if I don't think he's going to win it, there's a chance. Like, I don't think there's a chance in hell that Bobby Lashley's going to win the bloody match. So, let's not have it, let's not have him in it, please. I'm baffled that Sami's not in the chamber. Because the fact that Sami's not in the chamber means that literally nobody else is going to win it apart from Drew. I think it was Clark predicted Randy. Randy and Seth would have a brilliant story if they told it. But they just haven't. And
they're on two separate shows. It's just not going to work.
Exactly. Everybody is on Raw, as everybody is on SmackDown, aside from Drew. So it's Drew. Yeah. Drew is winning that match, unless Sami gets his way in. And even then, I still think Drew's winning. But, it'll be a good show. They always are. But it's just something that, I'll be honest with you, I probably wouldn't watch if I didn't podcast. They haven't given me something to go, I have to. When I saw Sami and Roman, I had to tune in for. I had to be there to see that match. And then obviously the Chambers have told great stories in the past. This year's very much just, there are 4 matches. It'll be a good show. Watch if you feel like it. It's in Australia. Good eye. It's I want more than that to really sell me on a show. I think that's Vengeance Day sold me better on their card than Elimination Chamber has.
They had a lot of unpredictability in that. There was quite a few. I don't think
there's any wiggle room on the winners for this card, and there's going to be some. I feel like because it's so predictable, there's got to be something big.
Well, bro, this is the thing. This is the thing, because Triple H said something like monumental and all this stuff, but bro, this is the thing, is that I think the aftermath is a little bit more exciting than the actual pay-per-view, because let's say, for example, all the people that win, right? Drew wins the men's chamber, and Becky wins the female chamber, whatever. But it's like, if you look on the men's side, bro, okay, Drew wins the elimination chamber, right? But it's like you have all these other people, like stars. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with Randy Orton? And what are you gonna do with LA Knight? And what are you gonna do with Sami Zayn? And what are you gonna do with Jey? Dude, where are you? Because they haven't been really building anything for these people. So you got 6 weeks to build something.
I think it's gonna be. I expect that this will probably spin off into. I think Logan and Kevin will have a rematch on SmackDown, and then it'll be Logan and LA Knight at Mania. That's what I think it'll be, with LA Knight winning the US title as a make good for them not giving him anything really through the rest of the year. But I mean, the only person who confuses me being in this match is Bobby. I would have had Sami Zayn in over Bobby Lashley. Because I just think it's more interesting. But everybody else, I think you're absolutely right, Ignacio, that the internal parts of the, bearing in mind that when we did the US title chamber last year, nobody but Austin Theory was ever really going to win that.
Yeah,
because we knew it was going to be Theory and Cena, but God, it still weren't half great. It's probably one of the best chain matches they've ever done. And
I think it's probably the best, with the exception of probably the first one. But
yeah, that's fair enough. I think so. There'll be great chamber matches. They really will. I think Logan will probably do something stupid, but
he's the one that's going to do the OMG moment.
Probably frog splash off the top of the pod or something. I don't know. But I think I read somewhere, and this is true, this show feels like it's lacking a little bit of star power because Seth's injured, so you can't have Seth wrestle. I know he's going to be there, but it's not the same thing. Roman's not there from the sounds of it. Rock's not there from the sounds of it, from what Rock has said. So they're not going to be there. Seth's not going to be there. Punk's injured. So slowly but surely, a lot of these things are just, these forces are just peeling backwards. And so for what they've got left, I think they've put together a very, I don't think Gunther can travel. So, but from what they've got left, I think they've put a good show together. But to be honest with you, the match I'm most excited for on this card is the tag title match. Because it's Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, and they're great against Judgment Day, who are great. But I think, and the women's chamber as well. I'm much more interested in the women's chamber than the men's chamber. But also, I think both will be really good.
That's fair enough. Yeah, it's going to be entertaining. It's obviously it's not going to. I don't think it's going to be one of the. I don't think it's going to be on my top 10 best pay-per-views of the year. I mean, unless they pull something out of the hat. But yeah, you're right. It is definitely just something like a stepping stone to get to Mania, which is only what, a few weeks, only like 4 weeks after this pay-per-view. So, yeah, it should be fun, especially with the lead up. And I'm definitely curious to see. They're probably just gonna throw the gauntlet to Roman and Brock, ain't it, for night one. I mean, they were promoting that same trailer all throughout the press event last night. If you guys saw that. So yeah, it should be fun nonetheless. I don't think it's going to be any bad spots, if you will, on that. But yeah, I guess we've come to the end of this show. Can you guys kiss some makeup already?
Considering what I thought this debate was going to be, I think it's been more civil than we anticipated it. I anticipated it being, and you made some good points, Ignacio. You did, and thank you for the debate. I retract my comment about Jurassic Park. Well, actually, I tell you what, we're only getting the daily in about 5 hours, aren't we? So that'll probably change by then. I'm sure it's in the cupboard somewhere. If I dig hard enough, I will find it.
Hang on to that comment. But I don't know. People might be disappointed about how things went down today, but I liked it. It was a good show. It was a good debate and rebuttal and so forth. And
it's much better.
I think if anything else,
no, go on. I was just going to say it's better for us to.
I think if anything else, people might find it very informative.
Yes, I think it's better that we disagree and proclaim our disagreements and than scream at each other, because screaming gets us nowhere. Screaming gets us nowhere. We've had a good debate.
Well,
I won. We move on.
No, you didn't. Far from winning. We'll leave it up to the fans. But by the way, I'm still reporting chaos to HR, which is Clark. Anyway.
If you're reporting to Clark, you're fighting a losing battle there, my friend. Because yeah, he's my boy. He's fine. But it's all good. It's fine. Probably next what I need to do is probably get you and Soul on here, and then yeah, that's gonna be hell on earth.
I was bad, crikey Moses. Gonna be get the bomb protection gear ready.
It's been a minute since you two have been on there. Definitely, it's been a minute. So yeah,
and then after that, get the three of us on. And I don't think anything will get done.
I'll just put myself on mute and just let it fly. That's what I'll do. That's what I'll do. Flip it out. Yeah, like I can imagine as soon as Soul jumps into the chat and he sees Ignacio, his reaction is going to be just this.
Go fuck yourself.
Pretty much.
You've waited the whole show to use that, haven't you? Hoping.
Oh yeah, definitely. Needed an excuse. But yeah, like I said, we've come to the end of the show. As always, thank you very much, David. Thank you very much, Ignacio. It took a long while, but we got there in the end. And have you guys got 5 minutes?
I have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Cool. You haven't been on this. You haven't been on this segment before, Ignacio. Usually we do episodes of this, but we're gonna play 20 questions. You up for it?
We're gonna work together now. After all of
Yeah,
this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I was like,
Yeah,
I
cool.
guess.
So yeah, this I'm just wondering, should we do video game or pay-per-view post pay-per-view 20 questions?
Let's do.
I'm gonna edit this out.
Because
Pay-per-view. All right, cool. Yeah. 1 second. I'm
Because
cutting this out.
Yeah, because it can't be Crush Hour anymore. So you know we.
No, it can't. All right, cool.
So we're trying to guess a pay-per-view.
Yeah, we're gonna guess a pay-per-view. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Never done this one. Never done this one before.
Oh, well, that's a deep cut. All right.
Oh God.
There's a lot, dude. A lot of these just blend together, but we'll try.
Let's see if our old school and new school sensibilities can combine. Between the two of us, Ignacio, there's got to be some point in our brains.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Screw it.
All right.
All right, cool. All right, so yeah, this is a new little segment here at the end of the show. We're gonna do 20 questions. Obviously, you guys, fans of the show, we usually do video games, but this time I'm gonna switch it up and do a pay-per-view 20 questions. So this one is same as before. These gentlemen get 20 questions to ask me. I give them a yes or no answer. No clues or anything on my end. And then it's one-shot kills. They can either use up all the 20 questions, or if they're confident enough to answer, then yeah, they can be a right or wrong answer. They must find out what this pay-per-view is. So are you guys ready?
Yes.
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. Your questions start now.
Who's asking first? Do you want to ask the first question, Ignacio?
Go ahead.
Okay. Is the pay-per-view a WWE/WWF pay-per-view?
Yes.
Okay. That's the start. That's helpful.
Okay. My turn?
Yep.
All right. Does the pay-per-view take place in the 90s?
No.
Okay. Can I ask the next question? Has this pay-per-view name been used more than once?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Is the pay-per-view Elimination Chamber? An Elimination Chamber.
Well, wait, what?
So we need. I'm assuming we need the name of the pay-per-view and the year that it took place. That's what we're after. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you still want to go with that, or you want to reframe it? What you want to do?
Is the pay-per-view an Elimination Chamber payper-view?
Oh, right. Okay.
Does the pay-per-view contain an Elimination Chamber match? Because that might give it a little bit broader scope. Should we do that?
Okay. Yeah, fine. That's fine. No.
Oh, well, there we are then. So it's not an Elimination Chamber. I don't think it's a No Way Out either, because I think they had. Can I ask the next question? We ran into trouble with this last time. Is the pay-per-view one of the traditional big four? Mania, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble?
No. That's 5 questions.
Okay. That's 5 questions.
All right. Is it a WCW pay-per-view?
No, don't ask that question. Don't ask that question.
Why?
We've clarified it's a WWE pay-per-view. That's my first question.
No, WCW.
No, that's what I said. Is it a WWE pay-per-view? And he said yes. So it's not a WCW pay-per-view.
Oh, okay.
I clarified that. That's the first question. No questions, Ignacio. You can ask another question if you want.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
Should we try and narrow down?
Is Shawn Michaels in the main event?
Okay.
That's very specific.
Very specific.
No.
No. Okay. Is the pay-per-view from the 2010s?
No.
I'm guessing it's 2000s then, unless we want to go to the 80s. I don't think we will. Well, how many questions have we got? How many have you used?
You've used 7.
Is the pay-per-view from it? Sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, is the pay-per-view from the 2000s?
Yes.
Okay, right. So that's 2000s, not a big 4. No point asking about internationals because they never really get international pay-per-views in the 2000s. So unless it was one of the UK, or it might be one of the UK exclusive ones, but I don't think so.
Is the pay-per-view a Great American Bash? I'm trying to get very specific here. It'll make things easier.
Really? Yeah, you're one of them ones. No.
Okay.
What the fuck?
Does the okay? Let me ask the next one. Did the pay-per-view take place in the first 6 months of a year?
Yes. That's
between January and June. It's not an elimination. It's not a No Way Out. It's not a Royal Rumble. It's not a WrestleMania.
It's got to be a Backlash or a.
Can I ask the next question?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Was the pay-per-view brand exclusive? As in, was it a Raw pay-per-view? Okay.
It was, yes.
It was a brand exclusive pay-per-view.
Okay.
Oh, fucking hell. Which means it's in that like era where they were doing them, which would have been like 2000 and like mid 2000s. And they were doing it by the late 2000s and they scrapped it.
Is the pay-per-view is the pay-per-view Backlash? Fuck.
Wait, say that again?
Is the pay-per-view a Backlash?
Oh, no.
Okay. Jesus wept. Oh no, wait, hang on, no, there were no way outs without Elimination Chambers because they were at the start of the 2000s. Did the pay-per-view take place before the year 2005?
Yes.
Okay.
So 2004 or earlier. First 6 months of the year.
7 questions left.
God. Not a Backlash.
Did you ask if it was a No Way Out?
No, I didn't. I just asked was there a chamber in it, so that might be worth an ask.
Okay, yeah. Is the pay-per-view a No Way Out?
No.
Damn. I thought it was gonna be the pay-per-view Eddie Guerrero beat Brock Lesnar. That's what I thought it was gonna be.
That was No Way Out 2004, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh god, this is difficult. How many questions we got left?
6.
6. Oh my god, we've got to be. This is a lot harder than the video games, but where you could just start asking. You just start asking about consoles and then hope for the best. Right, so it's it's 2004 or earlier. First 6 months of the year, not a Rumble, not a No Way Out. They would have done No Way Outs through till 2004, so we can rule out No Way Out. So we can rule anything out before Mania, I'd say. Was the paper? Oh my god! Was it New Year? Did they do New Year's Revolution pay-per-views right at the start of January?
Yeah.
Should we ask that? When did they do New Year's? No, because there wasn't one. 2005, I think, was the first New Year's Revolution. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's waste the question. Oh my god! Without looking up the pay-per-view schedule, I can't remember it.
Is the pay-per-view is the pay-per-view in May?
Yes.
Oh, that's helpful. Whereas if you know what pay-per-view happened in May 2000 to 2004. So what came after Backlash typically? Because this is a weak spot for me. So Ignacio, I'll rely on your knowledge of this. What used to come after? Well, Backlash used to be Backlash typically used to be in April. Oh, they used to fuck it about.
Yeah. Yeah, they used to move it around all over the place. There was one called like Judgment Day or something like that.
Yeah, there were multiple of those. I think again, I don't think had one before 2005. But how many questions we got left to ask?
5.
5. I mean, I don't
Okay,
know.
so it's 2000,
worth an ask.
2004. No, give me a minute. Is let's see, 2000, 2004
Judgment
is
when did King of the Ring used to be?
June,
That'd be like June,
July. All right, is Triple H in the main event?
Very specific. Yes.
Well, that narrows it down to any Triple H match between 2002 during the Reign of Terror. When did he do his quad in? That was 2001, wasn't it?
Okay. 2004. 2004 was WrestleMania. 2003 was WrestleMania 20. No,
2004 was Mania 20.
2020.
So that was Benoit as champion, but that doesn't really,
Yes.
really
Okay.
help.
So all right. So is the main event Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Chris Benoit?
No.
Rematch.
No, I think that was Backlash 2004, wasn't it? Was that triple threat?
Backlash or whatever.
Was Backlash? When did Shawn Michaels have his match with? No, because they wasn't in the main. When was the match with Shawn Michaels and God? Not that's not the answer, but. Oh dear God, Triple H.
That was like an 06 or 07.
When did Triple H face Kane? That feels like a. No, I think that might have been. No, that was late 2003. That was late 2003. The Katie Vick. Oh, we're in dark
Is it
times.
Judgment Day? Is the pay-per-view a Judgment Day? Fuck. Just go with that.
No. Two
Oh.
questions.
Ah. There were 2 questions
How many
left.
questions?
2.
So you get to ask 2 questions, and then if you don't, then after that you have to guess the pay-per-view.
We have to guess one.
All right.
I'm trying to go through.
Oh, what about the Unforgiven?
Oh,
Unforgiven.
that's the show. That's the show.
But was that later on in the year? Or was that a WrestleMania?
I really don't. The brand exclusive ones kind of they do all blend together. Can I ask a question? Just it might be completely wrong, but I just want to rule it out. No, actually, no, I'm not going to. We've got 2 questions left. In your house shows were long done by then, weren't they? By early 2000s.
Yeah.
God. When was Bad Blood shows?
Oh goodness.
Bad Blood. Bad Blood. Yeah.
The fact that Chaos reacted that way makes me think that.
Oh no, not you. Sorry, no, it's something I read. Sorry, not you. That was bad timing. Sorry.
I mean, should we ask? Because I'm running out of options here.
Go for it. Yeah, whatever.
Was the show a Bad Blood show?
No.
I don't know. Was the I mean, the only other one I can think of is Unforgiven, and I don't think it's Unforgiven.
Was it an Unforgiven show?
No.
Right, we got to guess now. On any pay-per-view that came from 2000 to 2004 in May, that's none of the ones that we thought it was. I don't know how we're 100% getting this, aren't we?
It might have been like a one-off pay-per-view random show.
No, it was used more than once. The name was used more than once. So,
okay.
Because I clarified that earlier. Why do I have a weird feeling that he's fucked us? That it's Insurrection, because that was used twice. That was the UK one. Like they used that twice. Okay. But because he said it was a nice obscure one, but I mean Triple H was in the main event, which really doesn't help because that was it. Like
That means if Triple H is the main event, it's a Raw show.
Yes, yeah, that's true. But again, I don't know which ones were Raw and which ones were.
It's a Raw show. It's
What we can also probably guess is that if Triple H is in the main event, more than likely he was champion. So he was champion.
Okay.
So he was champion in 2000.
Yeah.
Was it? Oh, was this? It wasn't 3 Stages of Hell, was it?
No.
Austin and Trips. Can't remember what show that was on.
That was before Mania.
That was
17.
that was No Way Out. That was a No Way Out before. That was the No Way Out for Mania 17. So Triple H would have been champion in 2000. 2002, he would have been champion in 2002. Wouldn't have been champion in 2003 because that was Brock, and wouldn't have been champion in 2004 because that was Benoit, and 2001 was obviously Austin. So I think it's 2000. It's either May 2000 or May 2002.
I think at 2000. Okay, I think it's. Man, I could have sworn it was an Unforgiven. Triple H. We're not asking any more questions, right? But I could have sworn it would have been Triple H, Rock, Iron Man match, and wasn't that an Unforgiven? I don't know. I give up.
I don't know. This is an era that I am shaky on. I'm shaky on onto early Ruthless Aggression. I know the big things, but smaller ones aren't. I genuinely can't even think of any pissing shows to even make a wild guess. Triple H was in the main event. God. I've got no idea. Honestly, I've got no idea. Did we guess Vengeance?
No, we didn't.
Should we say Vengeance 2000? Was there a Vengeance in 2000? Vengeance 2002? One of them.
Vengeance 2000, Chaos.
Vengeance 2000. It's not, but we'll guess it. Vengeance 2000.
Well, you can't change it now.
I know I can't change it. Was it Insurrection?
Well, what was it?
Okay, so yeah. Resuming. So yeah, came out on the pay-per-view was in the year 2022.
2020.
Sorry, 2002. Sorry.
Oh.
I did pass math. Happened after Backlash, before Judgment Day.
It was Insurrection.
It was Insurrection.
And look, what's annoying was I twice I said I was, I kept saying I was going to ask a question and I didn't because only had 2 questions left. The question was it a UK exclusive pay-per-view? And I would have.
You said it.
Had we have known that, I would have said Insurrection. I would have said Insurrection 2000 probably. So
yeah.
I would have still been wrong, but at least we could have narrowed it down faster. Damn it! Oh no!
Yeah,
This is right at the start. We had the right. I had the right line, and then lost it to go.
I think you said it was an Insurrection. I was trying to put my strongest poker face because I was just like, "Fuck!" You almost got it right at the end. I was like, "God damn it!" But yeah.
Well, you know what? Considering that we had to name one pay-per-view in the last 40 years of wrestling, I don't think we did too badly. We got a lot closer than I thought we were going to get.
Definitely.
So we had the right idea.
Definitely had the right idea. Don't feel too bad about it. It was definitely good. But yeah, all right, cool. That's definitely the end of the show, guys. Again, thank you very much, David Sheldon. Thank you very much, Ignacio, for joining us. Make sure you check these guys out on the daily show that is on, of course, every day at Wrestling Republic's YouTube channel. And also be sure to be here for the next episode of Take It to the Table, which I believe will be a tier list as well. We're going to be ranking all the WWE video game covers. So yeah, we're going to be doing that as well. So be sure to check that out soon. And make sure you share, subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell on the Wrestling Republic's YouTube channel, and follow us at Wrestling Republic for all your latest news and reviews on a daily basis, or wherever Ben Allison says it. But yeah, I have been your host, Chaos. He has been David Sheldon. Down below has been the controversial Ignacio. Until next time, guys. Peace.